We all tend to exaggerate and embellish the events of the past. Imagine that the same story was embellished from generation to generation for 1,000 years. What will happen in the end? The result is the story of the mysterious order of assassins, which gave rise to dozens of games and hundreds of myths. However, how elusive were the ancient assassins really? And how much truth is contained in the game series? What links the assassins to the Templars? Let's talk about all this in the next couple of minutes. Introducing ourselves in the shoes of the mysterious warrior of the past, Mohammed Salah, and in his new home, the Alamet Fortress. The action takes place in 1180, and the Fortress of Mohammed is located 100 kilometers northwest of the modern capital of Iran. It was in that area that the Order of the Assassins was based, about which there are so many legends. The origins of this order go deep into the fundamental contradictions between the followers of Islam. In short, the Sunnis recognize the exclusive influence of the Prophet Muhammad and have the freedom to choose their rulers. On the other hand, the Shiites attach importance not only to Muhammad, but also to his cousin Ali, and in turn believe that their rulers should be the heirs of the legendary ancestors of the Ali family. This is important because the later movement was divided into several factions, and their enmity towards each other often exceeded their hatred towards Christians. Looking ahead, we note that the assassins, being a branch of the Shiites, even teamed up with the Crusaders and peasants to fight together against the Sunnis. The first myth we will come across is that the assassins are a cult. In fact, they are better known as the Ismaili state, which existed from 1090 to 1256 and occupied a vast territory from Tajikistan to northern Africa. Our hero Muhammad Salah was a subject of the ruler Hassan ibn Sabah, who went down in history as the founder of the assassin movement. Hassan was a smart guy who was familiar with the teachings of the Ismailis, a branch of the Shia branch of Islam. After that, he became a wandering preacher, which attracted the attention of a high-ranking Persian official, Nizam al-Mulk. There are legends that they were friends, but this has long been refuted. What is important for us is that the Nizam ordered the arrest of Hazan, but he cleverly escaped and converted the Alamet Fortress to his faith, capturing it without firing a shot. Thus was born the state of the assassins. At that time, it was difficult, because in addition to our Muhammad Salah, no more than 1,000 people lived in the fortress, which was a tiny number compared to the powerful empires of that time. This is what led to the widespread use of hired killers. Hassan's logic was simple. At that time, any war went like this: two masters quarreled, stood on opposite hillocks, and watched their armies kill each other. Hassan, while in the Alamet Fortress, realized that if the master was killed, his army would not continue the battle. This tactic worked great. There was only one question left: where to find such elegant killers. And now our Muhammad Salah enters the stage. However, the term assassin itself is often misunderstood. It was invented by the worst enemies, the Sunnis, and many associate its origin with hashish. It is assumed that the ruler of Hazan controlled the people who oversaw this drug. They spent time in rooms surrounded by wine and women, which was more like heaven. The future assassin, Ivan, feasted, lit a cigarette, fell asleep, and then woke up. Hassan said that this is a demo version of paradise, and in order to get there, the assassin had to follow all orders. However, do not rush to envy our Salat. All this is fiction, propaganda, which was beneficial for the Sunnis to portray the Shiites as crazy drug addicts. Archaeological excavations carried out in Alamet disprove the very existence of such a simulated paradise room. The word assassin was offensive, but to others, since its origin was associated with hashish, a more accurate translation would be the word cattle. After all, our Muhammad Salah is more like a Spartan. Hassan ibn Sabah recruited future assassins from poor families, trying to attract those whose minds had not yet formed, and the life of a peasant was limited to fields and kicks from the master. Hassan offered them education and the promise of a heavenly life after death. Not surprisingly, the vast majority of the Po agreed to become assassins without the need for any demonstration of paradise. There is a legend that the candidates stood at the gates of Willamette and sat for long days without food and water, being insulted and kicked by the locals. Those who did not break were accepted for training, and the rest were free to leave. However, this legend has long been refuted. No harsh selection was required, as Po people followed the promises of heavenly life in batches, including our Muhammad. This led to the fact that the assassins almost without a fight captured one fortress after another, and as a result, a whole state was formed. Words of such murderers spread far and wide, and the rulers of Willamette, including Hazen, began to call him the Mountain Elder. In fact, he had the first ever elite intelligence agency under his command. Our Salah studied martial arts for years and owned any weapon. Theatrical art helped him ideally turn into any target. Moreover, Mohammed, like any assassin, had his own specialization. While working in the Persian region, Salah took an intensive course in learning the language, customs, and local life in order to pass himself off as a local if necessary. Recall that the Persian was not Al-Mulk, who tried to arrest the Mountain Elder Hazen. He hated the teachings of the assassins and at the same time admired the Sufi mystics. On October 14, 1992, after the evening prayer, Salah was approached by local residents, among whom were young people dressed in costumes, their favorite Sufis. One of them was our Muhammad, who handed him daggers as a sign of welcome. The killing, carried out in the form of a stab to the heart, has become one of the symbolic acts in the history of the assassins, cementing their status as people with whom, despite their large number, it is better not to quarrel. The rulers bordering their territories even slept in armor and were so intimidated that they allowed themselves to let through only proven subjects. In addition, the assassins invented a racket system and charged certain officials in exchange for their personal safety. However, here we are faced with another mythology. The assassins, while adept at stealth, are not masters of escape. During the reign of the Mountain Elder Hassan, on his orders, about 70 people were killed, and for this more than 100 assassins sacrificed their lives. The point is not that the operations were complicated. The main difference was that for the most part, after completing a mission, the assassin did not run away. After all, the deed was done, and pleasures awaited him ahead, such as wine and festivities. Moreover, often after the execution of the order, the assassin loudly announced his will and made intimidating speeches, and then, not infrequently, he was executed. This is what made these guys popular elusive killers who are not afraid of their own lives. They terrified even the inhabitants of Europe. However, after the death of Hassan and towards the end of the state, the assassins began to work on a mercenary basis, eliminating the targets of both Christians and adherents of Islam. As for the similarity with Sparta, it lies in the fact that the assassins adhered to the principle of maximum asceticism. The Mountain Elder preached the rejection of worldly goods, the simplicity of life, and the absence of temptations. Thus, this theory refutes the assumption that the assassins were adherents of the use of hashish. Note that Hazen himself executed his own son for drinking wine. Also, as mercenaries, it is possible to remain cool while under the influence of hashish. The bottom line was that the assassins fulfilled the faith of the Prophet, lived a simple life, and, upon completion of the mission, reached the promised paradise. It seems that such a scheme worked, given the respectful communication with countries that dealt with several thousand of these guys. It is important to understand that Hassan rarely killed for fun. The assassins didn't touch the innocent. Their purpose was to prevent war against them or their supporters. They chose targets point-wise, carefully planned, and attacked the rulers and high-ranking officials of hostile countries. There was a strict hierarchy within the order, which meant that there were many murders behind each killer, and despite this, he managed to survive in the role of bureau chief in Damascus, known as Traffic. Now you know that this is not a name. but a position for ordinary performers, who were called fidanes. The work of these assassins was carried out in the name of Allah, and their instructions came from above, from the command of Muhammad and his command. If Salah is successful, then in the future he may rise to the status of Dair, which is the elite of the assassins. All their secrets are revealed to the Mountain Elder, who chooses goals and determines the policy of the state. Belief in paradise at this stage becomes almost irrelevant. Getting down to business, the assassins were guided by cold calculation, especially in the face of the growing influence of the Crusades. Despite their simplicity and rejection of worldly goods, the assassins took their education seriously. The Valamudu Library, according to historians, was one of the most advanced at that time. From the point of view of the engineering defense of the fortress, Alamut was 200 years ahead of its time and repeatedly resisted attacks by the Persians and Seljuks, thanks to its secret passages and defensive structures. In addition, army commanders often died unexpectedly. However, the number of assassins was limited and the Sunnis continued to impose their will. An unexpected ally appeared on the horizon: the Crusaders, who were given the Masyaf fortress as a token of gratitude for their help in the fight against the Sunni ruler Aladdin. However, after the death of the Mountain Elder Hassan, the order lost its power. At least 3 attempts were documented to kill Saladin and end the war, but they all failed. Later, the Christian ruler Conrad of Manfred betrayed the assassins and plundered their lands. Conrad woke up with a knife in his heart, but this did not alleviate the situation of the state of the assassins. Saladin had to wage war on 2 fronts and fulfill orders from both sides at the same time. On the orders of Saladin, the assassins killed the European kings Raymond II and the Duke of Bavaria, and on the orders of the Christians, they eliminated 6 viziers and 3 caliphs. It was difficult to stay on 2 chairs, but the guys coped. However, the state of the assassins was destroyed in 1256 under the onslaught of the Golden Horde, but there is no need to be ashamed of it. At that time, Ardath destroyed everyone, and it is worth noting that the last elder of the assassins even tried to organize a couple of murders of the Horde Khan. According to UN estimates, the teachings of the Mountain Elder Hassan are now preached to about 15 million people. Moreover, Prince Skyra Khan IV, a Swiss citizen, is a direct descendant of the last elder of Mount Karim and met the Queen of Great Britain and Vladimir Putin. So formally, the Order of the Assassins continues to exist. It would be foolish to call the life of our Muhammad Salah good, because he was a murderer. However, do not forget that at that time murders were commonplace. Through targeted assassination tactics, the assassins created a state that lasted for several centuries and is an unprecedented achievement. In fact, the phrase "nothing is true, everything is permitted" was coined by a fan of the assassins and Kurt Cobain. Although the ancient history of Marco Polo can be considered the source of the romance of assassins, he described a mountain of myths, ranging from the heavenly room to the mass suicides of Hazen's people, which served as proof of their commitment to the faith. It is important to note that the assassins had no ties to the Templars, and there was no enmity between them. The game decided to combine both orders to create a plot, but in reality they existed at the same time, but did not overlap much. Perhaps one of the Templars died at the hands of an assassin, but it was just an ordinary order. Much of the image of the assassins is artificially exaggerated and sometimes confused with other mercenaries, such as the Indian thugs, whose history is also richer. In the end, like the Templars, the history of the assassins remains the material for future videos. Until we meet again, friends.